Checo let the clutch go early while the car was still in the air. There's the Max Verstappen of it all. The guy is just really, really good.
Oh my God, that's brutal.
We built Jules' car and left it in the garage as a tribute. Why am I doing this? You.
That'll do.
That'll do. Oh, mate.
Great shot. Calum, in February of this year, you announced via social media that you'll be stepping away from the Formula One paddock. What made you realise now was the time to hang up your race suit?
Well, I think for me it's something I'd been building up to. I've been thinking about for the last couple of years, obviously growing my social media, and with the release of my book, the idea was that it would give me a stepping stone to sort of find a way to stay in the sport but have a little bit of a better work-life balance. So I sort of got to a point where Red Bull made me this incredible offer where I could still be part of the team and go and be a brand ambassador. And it was just the right time, you know. I feel like throughout my career, I always say to people, step by step, and then find the right time to make the jump, and I just felt it was the right time.
So stepping away from the Formula One paddock, is this goodbye forever or just a goodbye for now?
No, I mean, it's certainly not really goodbye at all. I'm certainly still working on projects in and around Formula One. Obviously, Red Bull have a STEMX program where we go out into schools and we teach young people about engineering opportunities and careers in motorsport and things like that. So, and among the other things that I've been doing across the Red Bull group, I still feel very much involved in the sport. Admittedly, it is nice to perhaps not be sweating so much and doing those long hours in the garage. But at the same time, I'm just out there trying to represent the team as best I can.
You miss the adrenaline?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, for sure. That's probably my biggest thing. That was probably the thing that held me back for the longest in terms of making that leap, was that I really knew that I was going to miss that rush of a pit stop.
Great shot. Oh my God, what a shot, what a shot.
I'll take it.
How good was that?
Oh, really nice.
There I go.
Take it.
Kind of caught it a bit clean, but it'll work. Abu Dhabi 2021 is known as kind of one of the most controversial race weekends in Formula One history. What was that championship deciding race weekend like behind the scenes?
Stressful.
I bet.
From start to finish, I think I touch on it a little bit in my book, is sort of that whole run from Brazil to the end of the season. It was just stress. I think one of the overwhelming feelings that I had at the end of that race was relief. Mm-hmm. You know, like obviously there was joy, you know, it was the first championship and all of that, but I think relief was probably the biggest thing. I think it's the first time in my career the sport's ever like really had an impact on my own mental health.
Really?
Yeah, it was so stressful that you'd go home in between races, you just felt like you couldn't relax, you couldn't unwind, and then you were back on the road again. It was obviously an incredible thing for all of us, you know, the work that went into that season in both camps.
Yeah.
You know, realistically, the workload, the 70-hour weeks, you know, it's the same sacrifices everybody in that paddock's making. So that's what I always focus on. I always think about, you know, the work that we did to get that and achieve that goal. That's the thing that sort of sticks in my mind.
I didn't turn. Oh, good effort.
Boring.
I'll give you that one. Great par, well done.
Oh,
that's good.
Could have had you there. Oh, no.
Get left. It's not disastrous. There's always a lot of talk around Red Bull's second seat. Many people think it's cursed because they've gone through so many drivers. What do you think it is about that second seat where drivers are struggling so much against Max Verstappen?
Well, I mean, there is firstly that. There's the Max Verstappen of it all. The guy is just really, really good. I think not in terms of just his technical skill and his talent, but just I've watched Max grow into this guy that can do everything. He does everything well now. And I think that it's just added pressure, you know? I think for me I know the cars are the same, you know, I spent all this time building them.
Literally identical.
Yeah, other than things that you'd change for, you know, setup, driver preference, you know, comfort, things like that. The cars are built the same, you know, for the most part. Like, you know, sometimes you might have a weekend where you haven't got a set of upgrades for both cars and things like that, but over the course of the season, those cars are essentially the same. So I don't think it's like the seat is cursed. I think that like the last time, okay, so you look at when we took Max into the team in 2016, it was much lower pressure. because we weren't there winning. Merck were winning, we weren't there winning. So the whole pressure around the team was essentially less. When you come into a team that's had the dominant season that we had in 2023, the pressure is very different. Of
course.
Most successful ever season in Formula One. You're now the second driver against the guy that's done all of these things. It's a very different ball game in terms of where you need to be in your headspace. Oh, that's a great shot. Golf is not fair. Lovely, mate.
Thank you very much. Calum, we're going to do some quick fire questions. See the first thing that comes to your mind, okay? Just blurt it out.
All right.
Favorite F1 livery of all time?
Oh, Lucky Strike Honda.
What's one rule you like changing in Formula One?
The financial regulations.
Favorite helmet design?
Probably Lewis's Senna tribute one.
What's the biggest misconception people have about F1 mechanics?
That we all have loads of money.
Sprint races, keep them or scrap them?
I'd like to keep sprint races, but I'd like to change the format. I don't think there's any need for the grid and everything beforehand. I'd like to see the cars just queue up in the pit lane in the order they qualified, do one formation lap and go.
What's the worst job to have in a pit stop crew?
I think it's rear jack. Because if you're doing front jack, at least the car comes to you. But when you're doing the rear jack, you watch them and they have to like scoop round the back of the car and chase that crash structure, which isn't very big.
Right.
And at the front, it's different. Like I say, if you get run over, you just get some free time off.
That's amazing. Out of all the F1 drivers you've worked with, who parties the hardest?
It's between Max and Daniel.
Okay.
But I couldn't really split them.
Probably together there, but okay. Favorite track?
Suzuka.
Fill in the blank. Max Verstappen will finish his career with World Championships.
5. I think Max is going to win this year.
Wow, really?
I think Max is going to win the drivers this year, and then I think he's going to call it a day.
Maybe you know something we don't about
No,
Red
I don't.
Bull. Red Bull coming some major upgrades.
No,
you heard it here
I definitely
first.
don't know. I definitely don't know anything, but I don't know. I never.
You can't count him out.
This is it.
I
Like
know.
to not back Max is just like lunacy. I think.
What's been your biggest mess up as an F1 mechanic?
There was one in Monza a few years ago with Checo where I didn't quite get the nut off all the way, and then as I was trying to rectify it, Checo let the clutch go early while the car was still in the air, so it meant that the person next to me who was supposed to be taking that wheel off, he like lost a load of skin on his hand, and I felt guilty about it. Obviously, ultimately, I triggered that error.
Okay. Give me your Mount Rushmore of Formula One, your top 4 drivers of all time.
It's so tough. I've got to put Max and Lewis in there. Schumacher's got to be in there, absolutely. And then it's tough. I think for me, I'll always want to put Senna in those top 4.
Yep.
But I actually think it's quite close. Prost was brilliant.
Yep.
But yeah, I guess I'd go with Max, Lewis, Michael Schumacher, and Ayrton Senna.
Golf shot. Oh, great shot. Really good.
Oh,
good putt.
I knew it had too much on it. Wow.
I thought I actually made that.
Yeah, mate. So did I. Great putt.
Thank you. Yeah, good cleanup. Nicely done. You were working at Marussia in 2014 on Jules Bianchi's car when he had his fatal crash in Japan. How tough was that for you?
I mean, I wasn't prepared for it. I was like 23, 24 years old. It's one of my first real, memories and experiences in Formula One is sort of that day. So it was incredibly difficult. I was very lucky to have some older team members there around me and to be able to pick me back up and help me carry on. But it's one of those things. And like I say, Japan's one of my favorite circuits. But when we go there and it rains, obviously it brings back all those memories of that year. So it was really difficult. I think, the hardest bit for me would always be, I distinctly remember having to go into that FIA garage and recover the chassis. And I remember taking that cover off the chassis and just looking at the state it was in, and that was the bit, that was the bit that it was just sort of too overwhelming to see it all. It was a tough time for a little while after that, to just sort of keep my head in the job, in something that I loved, but there was there's a little question of why am I doing this, And
you were only in the sport a couple of years by that point.
Yeah, I think I'd started travelling towards the end of the 2012 season, so I hadn't really been in the sport for that long. It was very difficult.
Draw.
No, you're gonna be all right.
Yeah, it'll be all right. I might just be in the rough, but it'll be okay.
Oh, same thing. Just pulled across the ball. Fucking idiot. Did I just get away with that? Did I just
I don't know. You might be down there. You'd be okay. We'll find that. A lot of people, especially the modern day Formula One fans, Drive to Survive fans, don't actually realise that Jules' crash was one of the main reasons that the Halo was introduced in 2018.
Yeah.
And as we know, it saved, countless lives.
Yeah. I mean, not just F1, obviously. We've introduced those kind of regulations in most open cockpit cars now. So it's always nice to see that we learned and we made the sport better and safer.
How was the aftermath of Jules' crash? I mean, you ran one car the week after, correct?
Yeah, it was a double header, so we were straight to Russia. We built Jules' car and left it in the garage as a tribute. It was really difficult. I remember sort of the Wednesday of that week in Russia, trying to build rear ends and gearboxes in the garage. And it's one of those things, obviously the atmosphere and the mood in the garage is so
Somber.
sort of morose, somber, and it's just really tough to sort of work in those conditions and continue to do the best job. So obviously not running the car was the only decision you could make anyway, not just because it was the right thing to do, but because also the people there working, we didn't feel that we were in a place where we could build a race car well.
And there was some pushback, right, to try and only run one car?
There was a little bit. I think Formula One's management's changed so much since Liberty took over.
Sure.
But certainly I remember at the time there was a little bit of pushback about us only running the one car, and certain people feeling that ultimately people have paid to see 22 cars and we were obliged to under the regulations. And yeah, it's one of those things where business and sport, they often collide,
Yeah.
Thankfully, we got through that and we didn't run the car. And like I said, I think it was the right decision. Get back.
Good shot. Get left. Yeah, that's fine. Good shot. When someone messes up a pit stop, that you watch it on TV and someone, the rear jack guy or whoever it may be, doesn't get the wheel on, what's the aftermath of that? Do you get a bollocking from Christian Horner, Helmut Marko? What happens?
Not at all. That's not, it's not helpful. The first thing is, you can mess up your first pit stop of the day. You might have 3 more to do that day.
Okay.
So then in that moment, it's just about getting your head back in it. Worry about that later. We do so much pit stop analysis and all of that, and that's something you do post-race to learn from. But ultimately, you've got a pit crew that they all know how to do this. A lot of it is muscle memory. The other part is focus and being able to sort of get yourself back in that mindset. So in the moment, you can mess up a pit stop. You need to just get on with the rest of the day.
Yeah.
In terms of learning from that stop, it's something that, we do as a team. No one in the garage is going to give you a load of grief right then in the moment, but
No.
for sure
Later in the day.
for sure later in the day when it's a more appropriate time. And to be fair, that's part of it. The internal competition, even among us as a pit crew, we always think of a pit stop as 4 corners.
Yeah.
You're your own little team on your corner, and what you don't want to be is the slowest corner on a pit stop. So that in itself gets quite competitive at times. And I think some people respond really well to that. Some people, for me, that's always a great thing. I like that. I like to compete. So against my colleagues in that sort of environment, I'm always going to try and back and forth with them and stuff like that. I guess it's just about having the right people that can sort of deal with that sort of pressure.
Are you on the front right?
No, so the rear right.
Rear right, okay.
Yeah, so I did the rear right for the last sort of 4 or 5 years, and I loved it. I think doing the wheel gun it's one of those things I always say that I don't think it's the hardest job on the pit stop, not physically anyway. It might be the toughest mentally, and also that when it goes wrong, the person doing the wheel gun always gets the blame.
Right, okay, good.
That's pretty much how it goes. He's messed up on that. You know what I mean? I don't know why, but it always seems like it's the person on the wheel gun that gets the blame, no matter what's gone wrong. But no, I loved it. I think it's brilliant.
Oh no, might work. Yeah,
Real short.
Yeah,
Cement.
I just kind of thinned it a little bit. It'll work. Lovely strike.
1 minute.
Go left.
Mate, that's a good effort
Yeah,
from
it's not
there.
bad.
I would have absolutely dreaded putting from there.
Cal, what's the best and worst thing about working in Formula One?
Do you know what? I think to a certain extent the best thing is probably the variety. I can't think of many other things that I could have done that would have allowed me to travel the world 10 times, experience different cultures, different places. I think that's probably my biggest, best thing about it. I guess the downer is that it is all consuming. I think if you do it, especially in a travelling role, it really is all consuming. It takes a lot of your life. Work-life balance isn't a real thing in Formula One, because I think if you're dedicated to it and you love it, even when you're not at work, you're thinking about it. So I guess that's probably the downer, is that you need to be prepared to make sacrifices if you want to do it, and accept that it is really going to consume a lot of your life and your time and your effort.
Stop. Oh my God, that's brutal.
That is unbelievable.
That's brutal. Great putt though.
Thanks.
I actually thought from my angle it looked like you made it the whole way.
I know, I thought it was going to go as well. Lovely putt.
Thank you very much. Callum, thank you very much for doing this. I really appreciate it.
Mate, it's been an absolute
No,
pleasure.
I really appreciate it. Guys, thank you very much for watching. Go and check out Callum's new book, Life in the Pit Lane.
Life in the Pit Lane.
And I'll put the link in the description and everything. And be on the lookout for the next guest. Like, subscribe, you know what to do, all that jazz. See ya.